All right, all right. Welcome everybody. We thank you for joining um, Friendly Conversations. Friendly Conversations is our monthly communiversity put on by Friendship Community Services. So, Friendship Community Services is an organization that started back in the late 90s, 1998, and it was all about community education. It was all about community education, where the community educated itself on different topics and things of that nature. Since then, we've started Friendship Academy of the Arts and continued to work, which is a kindergarten through eighth grade charter school. So if you're looking for a great school, you can enroll right now at www.friendshipacademy.org. Came right out of this community, and there's been a number of different programs throughout the years. Even right now, I mean, right now we have a early childhood training program for those that have early childhood centers. We have we partner with People of Victory to provide those services, and also a food shelf and friendship. We have circles that we have going on, and also we have Communiversity. So Communiversity, this is the friendly conversation. So this is a part of Communiversity because next month we're not only going to have friendly conversations, but we're also going to have gardening going on, right? Gardening is going to happen. Sister Cassandra Allen is going to teach about gardening. So we got a couple things going on next month. Tonight, though, we are talking about housing. I know um, one of the things that we face the most is the issue of housing. Okay, so we got some really great people that's going to join us tonight, going to be a part of this conversation. And I want to encourage you to participate in the conversation. If you got a question, if you know of a resource or things of that nature, if you're on Zoom, put it in the chat. I'm also watching on Facebook Live. You can also put it in the chat on Facebook, and I will make sure that um, your question or comment gets said during this time. I want to jump right in, and but I do want to say this is something that we do every second Thursday of the month. Every second Thursday of the month, we will have friendly conversations with different people in the community on different topics. So tonight we have some special guests. Tonight, Reverend Emily Gold Weight, right? I said that right. With Beacon Interfaith Housing, and we have our very own Deacon Billy Brownlee. And then we have some personal testimony from Sister Cassandra Bellew. So we're going to jump right in. We thank you all for joining tonight, both on Zoom and on Facebook Live. So I want to just start out. I want to start with Reverend Emily, and I want to just really have you to introduce yourself and some of your background and how you got into this work of housing. And we're going to talk about Beacon. I mean, we're going to talk about the work that we're doing. I just left the Capitol, working with Beacon. So Reverend Emily, can you introduce yourself and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much, Pastor Russell, for inviting me. And it's really humbling to be here with the expertise that Deacon Billy and Cassandra are going to share too. But I love having a way to connect with all of you on this call tonight. Um, and if many of you are members of Greater Friendship, I want to bring a special greeting from our collaborative of congregations because you are one of the newest churches that has joined our collaborative. And so I'm really excited to meet some of you in person when I get a chance to visit the church too. So my background coming to Beacon as an organizer was actually from ministry. I was a pastor of one of our churches, an associate minister of a church in South Minneapolis, in Southwest Minneapolis, for 5 years before I came on staff at Beacon, where I now work on organizing for housing full time. And so my introduction to Beacon was actually at a church that had worked with Beacon to build housing, some of the first intentionally affordable housing with rental subsidy that had ever been built in that part of Minneapolis. And the ch part of that church's story was the way that they really needed to dig deep and face the NIMBY in their own neighborhood. But some people know what NIMBY means, not in my backyard. And certainly, when you're trying to do something new and when you're working to include people who've been intentionally excluded in housing, you're going to face some attitudes people may not have even realized that they had. And so the church was really a leader in the community to create these homes. And then by the time I was at that church, I was really blessed to just be able to build relationship with our people who were our neighbors, and not kind of an imaginary building that was hoped for someday, but a building where families and kids lived in 40 apartments and were going to local schools and wanted to go to preschool together and work together for all kinds of good things in the community. And so when I came on board on staff at Beacon, it was actually from having been in a role such as Pastor Russell's of being clergy in one of our congregations. And I really love working with many congregations to grow this movement, because it's not going to be solved one congregation at a time or even one building at a time. We're trying to pull the biggest lever that we can to really live out our vision that all people have a home. And that causes us to ask, why isn't that true yet? What do we have to do to knock down those barriers? So I still believe, even though, a lot of things are really hard in our country right now, there are a lot of our elected leaders are really listening to people of faith to bring a focus of how we're going to care for one another and the kind of communities we want to live in. So that's a little bit about me and how I got to housing and organizing at Beacon.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm gonna ask a follow-up question that, I've known you for, I don't know, we've known each other about 6 months now, but I know you to be a Beacon for 5 years. I mean, it takes passion. So why did you get into this work?
Yeah, and of course, there's always the personal story for organizers as well. And there's lots of different answers to that. But the more immediate that actually comes from these days when I have worked as a pastor in Minneapolis was that, where our church was located at a freeway exit, with a big parking lot, right? A lot of people would stop in asking for assistance um, regularly, right? Whether it was a car breaking down, whether it was out of money before the end of the month, right? And this in and out, the calls that you get as clergy, even in communities that would appear to be fairly affluent, right? There are people in crisis, there's people on the verge of foreclosure, right? Like, so I would get a lot of these calls, and there was a lot of things that we could do to help people, in a pinch. But if what they needed was housing, and the root issue was that housing was out of reach, we couldn't really help with that. Even though we had built this amazing building with Beacon, even though, like, you can make a big difference, but when you're consistently coming up short to be able to help someone who has no place to go, it really compelled me to focus on housing as an issue that I think we need really transformational change on it. And I'll just give you the kind of the personal example, which my friend has, I'm going to tell you about my friend who has given permission for me to share this story. But I came to realize that a really dear friend, Tamira, who cared for my daughter when she was in preschool and even before she was old enough to go to our preschool at the church, and Tamira was working there, she she was feeling really low and finally disclosed to me that she was really struggling with her bills and struggling to figure out how to sign up for, all the benefits she might qualify for and things like that. And she was living next door to the church in a small apartment, too small for her family, but she was next door to Creekside Commons. And at Creekside Commons, because of the rental assistance that's provided through, Section 8 that's attached to the beautiful new homes that we had built, residents at Creekside were paying 30% of their income
Mm,
for rent every month, which is what the federal government defines as affordable. And Tamira in the a smaller, not as nice apartment next door was paying about 80% of her income on rent every month.
mm,
And happy ending to this, after working with her on applying for all those wait lists when they come open, getting on, public housing wait lists. She has a beautiful new apartment that is one of the new public housing, like smaller apartment buildings in Minneapolis. But she has 4 children and she's waited maybe 7 years for that opportunity. And I just can't rest knowing how many families, and that could be mine, minus the support system where my folks can still help me when I'm going through a patch where we can't make ends meet, right? And so I have been, as a pastor, I have been part of that support system for people on an individual basis, but I feel like if we can organize for systemic change, um, Tamira and families like Tamira's would not have to wait 7, 8 years, or if they're even lucky enough to get, win the lottery to be on that wait list. And I know Deacon Billy knows many, many families who have faced those circumstances. And it's like another full-time job when you're trying to piece together how are you going to find housing. And so it's a privilege that my ministry now is actually working with people of faith all over the metro to not, again, knock down those barriers, because the only reason why that's so hard for Tamira is that we haven't decided as a society that it doesn't need to be that way.
wow. Wow.
There you go.
Such a great story. And I'm
Yeah.
so happy that you all can hear that story because it lets us know that it's not about a paycheck. It's not about a career. This is about a passion. So Deacon Billy, our head deacon, the head deacon at Friendship, I'll say Friendship, Greater Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. Uh, so, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this work?
Yes, thank you, Pastor Russell. I am Billy Brownlee, Deacon Billy. Um, how I got into this work, it's a little bit different. My very quickly, I'm gonna go real fast. I got into this work actually starting uh, with a 32-year heroin addiction. Someone reached down and helped me pull that needle out my arm. So during that process, I was, in treatment. I came across Reverend Wilder, who was doing every fourth Saturday. And the first weekend, I was in the guest room where they didn't give you any, you have to cold turkey. So after I hit myself in the head 2 or 3 times, they said that the preacher out there, he got food. I went out there and seen Reverend Wilder one time. And I knew, I wanted to be a part of that because I heard his story. And that motivated me to stay there because I didn't want to stay there. It was time for me to jump out the window and leave like everybody else. But I seen a glimmer of light, of hope, after being a part of one of those services that Reverend Wilder had. So they take you around all the churches. You go to all the churches in the Twin Cities, and you have to pick a church. And I went to Greater Friendship one time and decided I wanted that to be my work. And how I got into this work, I came through that treatment program, and I knew because someone reached down to help me. I knew God helped He let an everyday person help me. So I have to be that everyday person that God used to help somebody else. So during my time there, I was able to help. I was able to do a lot of different things, help a lot of different people, and moving on from that, went to Jimmy John's, had a great time there, able to help people, and got into nonprofit. Because I was always doing speaking for Aon, and I got into nonprofit, and I did one speech there. It was 800 people there, and they gave me a thing. I was the MC, and they gave me a piece of paper that I did not read. So I read it right there, and they said, right now, you no longer work for Jimmy John. You are a full-time employee of Aon. And I thought that was great. So it was a big surprise, and I announced myself in front of all of these people, and it was a
Wow.
standing ovation, and I thought that was amazing. Your Pastor Russell was there. It was amazing. I had the best time ever. So moving forward on that, I had an opportunity to get to learn how affordable housing work through Aon. I was a rapid rehousing case manager where we did provide rental assistance up to 24 months with that continuum of care to make sure that the client was successful, and we want to show some their own ability to pay their rent. So during that, I went to Agate, and I worked with Agate, which they're pretty similar, but that's how I really got into the rapid rehousing and learned how that worked. And then moving from there, well, before I left there, I was the shelter program manager, so understanding those who are homeless, and me having lived experience, to have to understand and know where they come from. So I went from there and I come to Sabathani, which here I'm the FHPAP manager, which is Family Homeless Prevention Assistant Program Manager. And kind of definition of the state. Well, go ahead, Pastor Russ. I don't want to keep going.
No, 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 no. I'm gonna come back to
Okay,
I'm gonna come back to what your organization does.
gotcha.
But again, you see, it's rooted in passion, it's rooted in purpose. So people that are doing this work, Reverend Emily, Reverend Deacon Billy, they are really representing a community of people that are really working hard on this issue of housing. And if anybody is working in the community, this is one of the main issues that we face each and every day. And then we have the result of their work with Sister Cassandra. So Sister Cassandra, can you talk? And so she's an advocate. She's a recipient turned advocate. So can you talk, about just how you got into the world of advocacy for housing?
My name is Cassandra Bellew, and I am a member of Greater Friendship Missionary Baptist Church. And how I got started was that I had some housing issues. And so one of the girls that I knew from a long time ago, she had started her own nonprofit. And one family, one community.
Uh-oh. Look like you breaking up, Sister Cassandra. All right. I think we might have lost her. But we'll catch her. We'll catch her we'll catch her on the back end, or whenever she get back. So, Reverend Emily, Beacon Interfaith Housing. Um, can you can you talk about that and the work that you all do? And really, like I know you got a presentation. So can you go through your presentation to really teach us more about Beacon Interfaith Housing?
Absolutely. Let me make sure I've got the right screen to share with you here.
All right. So, Sister Cassandra, we had lost you. You had froze, but we'll come back to you. We'll definitely come back to you.
Okay.
We might, if your internet's spotty, it might be easier to hear you without your camera on.
Oh, okay.
You
Can
want
you
to
hear
But
try
me
it
yeah,
now?
again?
you sound much more clear now. Did you want to go back to,
Yeah. Look, you ready, Cassandra?
Okay, yes.
there you go.
So as I was saying, once I got off into it, and then I took a class called or the organization under within the U of M. Then when I took a week's class with them, and then it taught me how to organize and how to speak up for myself and talk about the housing and what I was going through. So once I did that, then I connected. There was a speaker that came over to speak when I took that class, and her name was Denise from Acer. And once I connected with Acer, I literally, when she talked about Acer and policy changing, and I had just moved into an apartment complex where they had just made some policy changing. So I joined the tenant organization that they had over in that building, and I kept it running. I was the last person that was there. Everybody else had moved with me, but I was the last person that was there. And I had issues in that apartment complex as well. So then I just started speaking, and a lot of people was asking me to attend a lot of housing meetings, and so I continuously to just educate myself as far as housing. So now, a lot of times I was reaching out to a lot of the different organizations like Hotline, to find out what I needed to do, or if I had a problem. So now I know how to just write my letter, send it to them, set a meeting, and do what I need to do. I've also helped a lot of other tenants as well. I talked about, because a lot of times landlords don't think we have the right to talk about bug issues or maintenance work. And, a lot of times, a lot of the maintenance people want to come in your apartment without a 24-hour notice, and they just want to come in at any given time that they felt. So no. And so then I learned the ins and the outs, how to make them pay for when they walk in your apartment. All you got to do is just get them this sheet of paper, and they have to always give you a 24-hour notice. So I learned how that I had rights. I learned how to speak up for myself when it comes down to apartments. So a lot of times ASA will ask me to speak for them, speak at something that they have, because I've been with this organization for probably like almost 10 years now. And so I did a video for them where they just changed some policies, where we can now have meetings without even in the complexes now, without even having the landlords present. We don't even have to invite them now, and they can't deny us, because at first they used to deny us a meeting, or we couldn't pass notes to help the tenants, because a lot of times the management don't want the tenants to know their rights. So, and a lot of times, a lot of the people that is from like Somalian, or they don't know their rights, and they just like continuously to just get over on them. And then so I just educated myself to help others as well, and I'm still moving with it.
That's such an amazing story of how what the first thing she said was I was having housing issues. And now she's an advocate for people with housing issues. Another thing I heard was how support services and someone's desire, because the mayor, when we're talking about the encampments, the mayor did state that, hey, we got the services, but we have people that's refusing the services of getting them adequate housing. And we're still working with those individuals. So it takes the services and knowing your rights, knowing the services that are available, and acting up on those services. And so a couple different things I heard there. So thank you, Sister Cassandra. So Beacon Interfaith Housing, Reverend Emily, can you go into your presentation to help us learn a little bit more about the work of Beacon Interfaith Housing and how we can get involved?
Absolutely. I don't think you're seeing the right screen.
No, I'm seeing the change in the landscape.
Oh, okay. Let me close some other windows because that was showing for you and not for me. Sorry.
That is all right.
Two screens. You'd think this long after doing stuff on Zoom, it would all come more naturally, right? Here we go. Okay. What are you seeing now?
Seeing the presentation.
Okay, great. It has changed the way it tells me what it's showing. So there we go. All right. All right. Whoop, there we go. So Beacon has a few different identities. We actually were known as a shelter for over 30 years. Our Families Moving Forward program was the way that most of our congregations actually got involved in Beacon in the beginning. They hosted families on an emergency basis on like air mattresses on the floors of their Sunday school classrooms and so forth for decades. And on the housing development side of what we do, about 20 plus years ago, Plymouth Congregational Church, which if you can picture where that is, you've probably driven past it a million times, Nicollet and
Franklin.
Franklin.
Mhm.
Plymouth Congregational Church actually founded us as a housing developer by building Lydia Apartments, which is our first original building on LaSalle, um, which opened in 2003. And so we have been doing shelter and housing for decades. And the longer we worked in shelter and the more we knew we needed housing. And the longer we work in housing, the more we also need policy change. So you're going to hear us talk about a little bit of both of those today. We actually no longer do shelter. We really specialize in permanent supportive housing for perhaps the same families who might have otherwise encountered shelter or who need that step. So we're no longer shelter, but we are a housing and policy organization. And we're an interfaith collaborative of 70 active congregations. So welcome to that collaborative, Greater Friendship. I just want to name a few of our really core values are collaboration, risk-taking, race equity, and inclusive decision-making. We know that the answers to the biggest things that we're worried about in our world right now are not things that any one organization or any one charismatic leader even can address. And so the more that we work together, the smarter we're going to be. And I just want to really lift up that race equity value. This is another thing, one of the many ways to answer the question of why I and so many others are so motivated to work on housing is that the housing disparities that communities are experiencing right now are not new, they're not sudden, and in many ways were really intentionally designed as tools of continuing segregation in the United States. And so when we work on housing solutions for people who are facing the most barriers to stability in housing, we're actually working on racial justice, and we want to be working together with anybody who sees it that way. This is a really useful chart, and perhaps when Deacon Billy talks, he can talk about how he kind of interacts with these levels of housing here. This is a graphic I borrowed from Hennepin County. This kind of shows, you hear a lot, or maybe, in your daily life, you're like, or maybe you're seeking affordable housing, right? Maybe in your own personal experience, people ask all the time, what does anybody actually mean by affordable? And so affordable housing is kind of a really big umbrella term. But there are these different sort of levels and different organizations working along this whole continuum. So the purpose of showing you this is to explain where Beacon really focuses. You can see at the bottom here, there's emergency shelter, and we used to be an emergency shelter provider. Transitional housing is also actually a kind of shelter, and not if it's not a permanent home that's not time limited, it's still kind of in that shelter. And that's a super, super important part of this continuum. Permanent supportive housing, which is housing plus services and very deeply affordable for people with the lowest incomes, that is actually the step in the housing ladder that works really well for a lot of people who are coming from shelter or who are coming from the street or from couch surfing or from incarceration, situations where there may be more barriers to address and more healing to do than simply addressing the cost of the housing itself, right? And so permanent supportive housing includes services. Often in our buildings, The service providers usually have offices in the buildings and are just part of that community day in, day out. Affordable housing and workforce housing, this could be talking about anywhere um, from like 30 to 80% of the area median income. That's kind of the measurement that always determines how affordable something is priced, or for whom it would be affordable based on their income. And then, of course, home ownership is an extremely important part of this whole ladder, especially naming, the ways that home ownership has been systematically denied to people. Home ownership programs really are an effort at repairing that brokenness, and providing a path to owning some equity in your home. And so this whole continuum here is really, really important. And there are amazing organizations working on every single one of these. I would add, if I were the one making this graphic, below emergency shelter, there should also be something naming street outreach and the work that folks are doing with people who never do enter shelter, because the path is different for everybody. So I mentioned supportive housing is really where we focus. I'm going to give you one example of that tonight. But it means in the way we do it, in our model, that services are usually on site. There's a housing subsidy, either a Section 8 voucher or something called housing support. So residents have rental assistance provided. They're not coming up with the full cost of rent themselves. And those services are tailored to who lives there. Every building that we have is actually specially designed between the building and the services, or ideally it would be, to address the specific needs and hopes and desires of a particular population. So we have buildings that specialize in youth who are formerly homeless, families with children, single adults, residents with disabilities. And there are different buildings usually for people who are at different stages of recovery or not recovery from some substance use and mental health concerns. And so all of our buildings are designed to fit the best, because just like all of us, what we need for housing and what we need for services, there's not one answer to everything. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Emerson Village, because Greater Friendship has a special relationship with Emerson Village, and I can't wait to show you all this building, which is now built, but has been a dream for a really long time of community members. It was actually built on the site that used to be right there at 18th and Emerson, just a block south of Broadway. So it's right next to Emerge and Juxtaposition Arts, if you can kind of picture that part of the north side. It was the site of our Families Moving Forward Shelter Center for many years, and that they had purchased that land really with the vision that it wouldn't just be kind of a small temporary building that could be kind of a day center, and we always made it, as nice as we could. But it was limited, in what we could do out of that building. And so there had been a dream for a long time that it would actually become land that would be turned into homes, permanent homes for families. And so a group of Northsiders and allies from, who live in different parts of the metro have been working together in some ways for decades, but especially over the last 5 years, starting in the March of 2020. And you can imagine how challenging that was. We organized together to get the funding, the permission, the support of the city council, to fundraise, to make a lot of friends in the community for Emerson Village. And today, this is a little outdated. The last families have actually moved in, I think that this week.
Amen.
And this is what Emerson Village looks like. It's an absolutely beautiful new building for families who have experienced homelessness. And so we're really proud of of the outcome, and it could have only happened because people of faith and people of goodwill, in the community really worked together to make it possible. There's no way we could have ever built Emerson Village without a lot of partnership and collaboration. And so I'm actually going to skip forward a little bit to explain how congregations are involved in housing development and policy, because that's kind of abstract. People are like, ask me, how do we help build a building? I'm not in construction, is that like Habitat where you volunteer and you actually go help build that building? It's actually that our congregations and the folks we organize with do a lot of different things to make it possible for those homes to exist. So we've talked a little bit about the advocacy and the organizing. That means that we work together as a team. We learn organizing skills, a lot like Cassandra was talking about, learning, how do we go and address issues that are concerning us? How do we deal with some disagreement and like work our way through? We do that with our elected officials as well. And we work a lot to actually create the buckets of funding that a developer like Beacon or our service providers could apply for in order to make these resources come together. So there's a lot of years that go into it before a building, is built and families move in. Clergy are extremely important. With Emerson Village, a lot of the clergy in North Minneapolis, but also all around the metro, we're working for years to really build the trust and to build the public will to make it possible. They also support their congregation members in so many ways and know the needs of the community that are brought to them all the time. And so it's really important for them to be involved. Congregations can give a financial gift. Of course, it takes money to do all of this, and it's one of the things that people can really joyfully, do to feel part of the work. And so giving of any shape and size is a huge piece of what congregations do. And then this one's really fun. The support circle here is actually our volunteer route and kind of the way to get to know how we can support our service providers and supporting the residents. So I want to thank everybody at Greater Friendship who donated diapers and has really helped stock the closet so that families moving in from shelter or situations that have been really hard and stretching a little bit of money a really long way, coming in and having some diapers to choose from is kind of a lifesaver. So I'll just end with a couple of pictures of, our volunteers doing their thing. These are the supplies being brought to Emerson Village. These are people advocating for land use for one of our buildings. And I love this picture here. Pastor Russell, you want to explain what we're looking at here?
Oh yeah, so we were advocating at the Capitol. We met with Senator Champion along with one of the board members there and one of the fellow clergy, Northside clergy, and really advocating on behalf of Beacon. So it was a great time.
Yeah. And so, like right now, we have bills moving through the legislature that clergy and advocates, just like any of you, would be welcome to do, speaking up for the resources that our state needs to invest in order for supportive housing to be the best it can be in our state. It takes a lot of resources to do this well and to serve the folks that really deserve this housing and have been waiting way too long for it, like my friend Tamira did, right? And so there's a lot of ways congregations can be involved. And I look forward to inviting everybody to the grand opening of Emerson Village and continuing to explore ways that we can work together. Pastor Russell, I brought one slide that actually has an action people could take today if they wanted to, but I can hang on to that. It's like a
Yeah,
QR
hang on
code.
to that one. Hang on to that one for
I
me.
can hang on to that
Yeah,
till
we're
the
gonna
end of
come
our
back.
call.
We're gonna come back. Actually, put it back up. Put it back up
Put
while
it
you
back up?
while you're up
All
there, because
right.
I want to go to Deacon Billy after this. But yeah, put it up. We can talk about that. If you want to
All
take
right.
action, can you talk about that?
Yeah, folks can use your I'm never the first to adopt new technology, but a little camera in your phone, you hover it over that that QR code And it should take you to a very quick form to fill out, which is going to automatically email your representative and your senator in the state, and let them know that it's really important that, we are watching how they are moving bills through the session. We want to make sure that housing comes out with the best, strongest support that it can. So please feel free to do that. And I will also just put that link in the chat here, and Pastor Russell can share it afterwards.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Emily. Deacon
Thank
Billy.
you.
Deacon Billy, the family. So let's take a step back. So this is so you all saw that continuum, right? That ladder. So let's go back in term because Deacon Billy is a part of Family Homeless Prevention Assistance Program. So can you talk about the work that you do, Deacon Billy, and how we can, or if we can be involved, or how can somebody get access to those services?
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Russell. I am Billy Brownlee, Deacon Greater Friendship. And the program I'm involved with is the Family Homeless Prevention Assistance Program. And I manage that program here at the Sabathani Community Center. And the FHPAP assistance program, I mean, it was established in 1993, and it was for children, single adults, um, people at imminent risk. And outside of the state's definition, some of the strategies for prevention, which is the goal of FHPAP, is to prevent these things from getting to that point of being homeless. Resources is important that we put referrals for resources, including but not limited to cash, non-cash benefits, some legal aid, childcare, mental health, chemical health, substance abuse, employment, financial assistance, budgeting. We have assistance for that. Tenant, property owner, manager, mediation. So when we have clients with those problems, I have a resource for mediation so that it won't get to an eviction piece, so it won't get you got two neighbors fighting. We have resources that can help fix that, and assistance strategies, rental assistance. We pay back rent, we pay rent that you are behind. Mortgage assistance is a discussion. Utility assistance, light bill, gas bill, those are some assistance we play a part in paying. Rental application fees, vital documents. For instance, if you need an ID, I have a form here to where you take it to the DMV and pay 25 cents. That ID is probably $38 or something like that. So I got a form, you can fill it out for just a quarter or something like that. So
Wow.
we want to provide um, resources for those that it seems like these resources are hidden. When you mention this, most have no idea. So, it's my part to kind of bring that word out, and that graph that the Reverend showed with the emergency shelter, permanent supportive housing and affordable housing, workforce housing, home ownership. That is amazing. Those are the steps that we do here. And again, she is correct. There's something that needs to be below emergency shelter, which is shelter outreach, street outreach, because you have to get to that emergency shelter point. I was a shelter manager, and that's a process to go from the street to a shelter. So we do need street outreach to play a part in that. And affordable housing, I play a part in that. I'm going to make sure that I start bringing this updated list to church. We have apartments starting at $580 for certain agencies up to $1,600. So affordable housing is key, because some ask who is it affordable for. I've seen affordable housing for 1,400. Who is it affordable for? So we have to get that understanding, and we don't want people to think it's affordable, but it's not affordable for me, which is a valid point. So another resource is beyond background that we do if you're dealing with a UD that has money attached to it. We have a program that's willing to put funding up to help fix that and to help because a UD probably you didn't pay your rent. So it's like it'll help assist with the landlord if they agree to rent to you. It's like $3,000 or something like that. So it's like a backup if something happened, you don't pay your rent. So it's beyond background can go a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. Every situation is different. Um, a lot of times when we're doing the rental assistance, just like I was just telling Pastor Russell, today is the 10th and we're out of money for the month. It don't take long. I can give the certain information so that, when you do call me or when I do get a reference, I'll tell you exactly what you need so that it puts you 90% ahead because the delay is the paperwork. You had to get this from your landlord. You got to get that. You have to make sure you fill this out. That's a 3 to 5 day process. So if we can cut that down to 1 day, we can get more services out and we can get this help out. But we're petitioning to the state for more funding as well. So you probably hear me or see me in some of those meetings as well, trying to get more funding for just this program because, again, we was at the meeting today. I really ran out yesterday, so 9 days into the month and I'm out. So that's up for discussion. So as long as they see we're putting out the output, so far it looks pretty good that they're going to increase the funding that we get so that we can help more individuals. Housing navigation, I do that to a certain aspect so that it's a good fit. We don't want to put anybody anywhere. So a navigator, you're going to go, you're going to check, you're going to make sure that this is a good fit for the individual. We don't want to put you somewhere where you struggle with for the last 10 years. So that's really, really, really important to navigate. And I know private landlords, one of them just called me the other day. Hey, I got a 2 bedroom for 1,300. I needed to rent it. I called somebody, but they had already got a place. So sometimes you get the private landlords that let I know your people struggling, but I'm willing to do this. So, that's great to have that housing navigation resource because everybody's not going to make the cut when it comes to these applications, when it comes to some are denied just for credit check alone. If your credit score isn't to a certain standard, you can make $70,000 a year. But if your credit score is not up to a certain standard, you will be denied. I got denials in here just for that. And again, back to the rental assistance. It's just some documents we need. You have to be under the income, which is 200% medium income, which really it's yeah, $27,000 a year. So if you're like around that and you're struggling with rent, we're going to ask for a lease. We're going to ask for a W-9 from the property. We're going to ask for a ledger. So we look at these documents, and then once I approve it, I give it to Rent Help Minnesota. That's who I work with through Sabathani, Rent Help Minnesota. So I submit these documents to them. And once they approve them, they give me the thumbs up, and a check comes out of Sabathani. So it's a great feeling to be able to come from a place to where you needing help to get to the place you're able to provide help, you're able to provide resources, you're able to provide encouragement because that's a big part of what's needed. Not necessarily here's this, go ahead. Nope, you need stability, you need continuum of care, you need to show the individual that you can do it. Sometimes we are the only light that some see. Sometimes we're the only word that they hear. So we want to make sure that the words we use and the attitude that we have of someone that's struggling, a lot of people, this is their rock bottom that come through my door. This is it. They had a summons and the police had the orange thing on their door and they said, Billy, I need help. This was their rock bottom, and I want to understand. I feel their passion, and I want to go out and help. I want to give them hope. And a couple of those situations, they didn't get put out. They didn't get evicted. The landlord accepted the letter of guarantee. So it's the little victories in that. Yeah, they were happy, but they don't know I was way more happy on the inside because I helped another. So that's the whole role. Because I was helped, now it's my responsibility to help someone else. I always say God uses everyday people, and he chose me to be in this field because I came from this and to be able to help others come out of this situation.
Wow. Wow. That I mean, y'all just showing the need. Can you You told me today that you got 400 calls a day, you know,
474.
400 seconds. Do y'all understand how big this issue is? One program got 474 calls. uh, uh, Beacon, to get involved with Beacon housing, you have to already be a part of a program. So then you have people that are, a Section 8 or something like that. Then you got all these people trying to get involved. And then we have this federal, I mean, you have the affordable housing crisis right now in the city that's taking place, especially with our young people, the ones that are just coming out of high school, the ones that are just coming out of college, cannot afford to get a one-bedroom apartment right now, you know. So and then and then wages hadn't kept up with inflation. So you got an uphill battle that they're fighting, and you have programs. I see you come off mute, Emily, Reverend Emily. You have a comment?
Yeah, a couple things. One, a personal example. I feel really fortunate with some family assistance with the down payment a couple years ago, became a homeowner after having been renting for a long time. And what really drove me to, stretch to make that happen, and I'm fortunate again that I had that option, was that for the same house I'm living in paying a mortgage, if I was renting it, I'd be paying maybe $500 a month more. And of course, there's the expenses of being a homeowner, which, constantly come up, but it is one of the most, it's like it's so incredibly unfair. It would seem that renting should be accessible to people, right? And that you then would be able to save and then maybe move on to being a homeowner. But there's a lot of things set up right now to advantage people who already have an advantage, right? And to continue widening those gaps. And that's not lost on me. And I think that that's a big part of the picture. The other thing I was going to say is, in Beacons, in the housing we have that maybe isn't just the supportive housing, we do have like some workforce housing, like Creekside Commons, the example that I gave you. Um, those apartments almost never turn over. So someone in theory could call our property manager. Welcome to do that. If you see one that you want to, call. But how quickly that would be filled and how long of a wait list if we ever kept a wait list, right? I mean, I remember them explaining when Creekside Commons first opened and it was this huge deal. And, I don't know if it's 40 or 50 families moved right in, and that's such a huge thing for those 50. How many more made that call? And the news was, we're full, right? And so that's something that really motivates me to work on the rental assistance side of our policy work as well. I wanted to mention that we actually, one of the biggest policy successes we've ever had is actually starting a new rental assistance program that's funded by the state instead of the federal government. That's going to help us build more affordable housing, but also that will help folks who are on that Section 8 wait list, so that wait does not need to be so long. So when we advocate for housing now, we're always advocating to actually fully fund that, because we could actually decide that people don't have to wait for the most basic needs to be covered in Minnesota.
Basic, basic need,
Yeah,
not want, not desire, basic need of everyone that is a resident in
that's right.
Minnesota to have quality housing, affordable, supportive housing. You can see both of these programs are state funded. So yes, one way is to volunteer to help raise money, to help direct people to 211, to the resources that'll eventually get to Deacon Billy, but also your state representative, write them. I mean, even if it's not in session, they keep up with who is reaching out to them and what issue, right? You can just write them and say, "Hey, I just heard friendly conversation and heard about Beacon. I support Beacon. I support the Family Homeless Prevention Assistance Program that's going on at the Sabathani Community Center right in our community." So that's another way we can get involved. Sister Cassandra, can you tell us, just from your perspective, as we close out tonight, just what encouragement would you have for those people that feel like I'm in a tough situation, there's no hope, or I'm in this place where I'm in a bad situation, I'm in a bad home, what hope or what encouragement would you give people to get to the point where you got to where you can go from someone in a housing issue to advocate to now helping other people, working with ACER to help other people?
Uh, I would tell them, don't be afraid and always know that your voice counts.
Mm,
It matters. Because at the time I didn't know my voice counted, matter, or anything. So even though you are a tenant, what you have rights just like the landlord does.
mm,
And your voice counts and it matters.
wow. That's amazing right there because we think we can put all this effort and it would go to nothing, but that's a great way to end our night tonight. Your voice matters in so many different ways, and y'all voices mattered on tonight in friendly conversation as we talk about housing. So Reverend Emily Goldway of Beacon Interfaith Housing, you can look her up. You'll know how to get in contact with her. And Deacon Billy Brownlee at Sabathani Community Center with the Family Homeless Prevention Assistance Program. He put in there average affordable low income housing stay is 3 years and 8 months. All right. So this is a bridge to get you where you need to go. Because one thing I like about Beacon Interfaith Housing is I went to visit Emerson Village and somebody asked the question, well, how long do you all, how long are residents here? And one of the things that they said was really impressive was as long as they need to be. I was like,
Mhm.
what? It's not a time limit. A year, you got 2 years to figure your life out to
Mhm.
get in more stable. No, this is home. They said, no, we want this to be home. And then once they get to the point where they can move out, then they move out. So that is
Yeah.
great. She put her email in there. She feel free to reach out to her. Did you have some closing words, Emily or Deacon Brownlee?
I just want to thank you all so much for having me and for being part of Beacon. So, in the future, when you talk about Beacon and the great work they're doing, say we. We are Beacon, and
We.
anything I can
Okay,
do to
thank
help
you.
you really get the experience of getting to be part of that. And, in one of those great pictures full of people who've been working together over the years, rolling up their sleeves to make housing happen. That's you too. So I look forward to meeting you all in person.
Awesome. Deacon Billy, you got the last words.
Just grateful to be a part of this. This seemed like it's a great fit for me. I'm able to help people. You know, again, God uses everyday people. There's some extenuating circumstances that Pastor Russell know. He gonna let me know, and God gonna use me to make it happen.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you all for joining. Even your voices matter and your presence mattered on tonight. So we thank you and we look forward to our next time together, where we will be doing friendship community services, communiversities, friendly conversations. So thank you all. Y'all have a blessed night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.